Well, we got through those 3 notes in that song. Thank you for your kindness. Well, this morning, once again, I will attempt to enlighten people who already know more about the topic than I do. Everyone here is so smart, it's overwhelming. It's a curious way to force myself to be creative. The topic is about Abraham Maslow's psychological pyramid of needs and how we can adapt it to include spirituality. Now, if I'm mispronouncing Abraham Maslow's name, that's because you're smarter than I am, and just keep it to yourself. Abraham Maslow proposed an optimistic psychology that people have a say in choosing and following their own paths of decision, as opposed to being controlled by the environment or primitive urges. And that's what other psychologists were becoming famous for. In spiritual terms, this would mirror the debate between predestination and free will, but we're not fighting that battle this morning. We are just exploring what the implications of Maslow's theory would mean to us, because we're already a positive, optimistic group. Well, mostly. Now, Abraham Maslow conceived this conceptual pyramid of needs leading up to what he termed as self-actualization. The 4 lower levels of the pyramid from the bottom up, and let me show you a picture, if I have a picture. It's not that one. It's this one. It's a pyramid for you Egyptologists out there. And as we work our way up from the pyramid, we work up from a base. And from the bottom up, we first address the physical needs, such as food, shelter, and clothing. The second level of the pyramid addresses safety needs, such as employment, security, and property rights. The next order on the pyramid are love and belonging needs, which would include relationships with the family and the community, and friends. Friends are very important. And the 4th level are our self-esteem needs. And those are needs of prestige and accomplishment and respect from others. And of course, the order of needs those needs to be met will inevitably overlap. Now, at the pyramid of the pinnacle, at the very top, was the 5th level, the goal of self-actualization. And this is where things get a little murky. Maslow initially defined self-actualization, and, well, I'm going to read it word for word so you guys won't think I'm making it up as I wing it. Maslow defined self-actualization as self-fulfillment, namely the tendency of the individual to become actualized in what he is potentially. Well, this was found to lead to the question of what on earth does this mean? It was kind of murky. Maslow himself tried to clarify throughout the years, and he would tweak his definition constantly. And to this day, many people are still making up lists of characteristics which they think sound self-actualizing. Well, some of the common characteristics that they seem to gravitate to are a sense of purpose, a sense of self-awareness, a tendency towards independent thinking. And most commonly, they seem to have a consensus that creativity will play a role in self-actualization. Well, Maslow stated that self-actualization could not occur until all of the other levels of the pyramid were traversed and all other needs were met. And I think this is generally true. After all, if you're wandering around in the desert, dying of thirst, looking for water, you really don't have time to contemplate dance class or figure out how to learn how to do watercolors. But on the other hand, I think we can all, off the tops of our heads, think of starving artists and depressed writers. Some of those are the best ones. However, I don't want to critique Maslow now. Instead, I would like to thank him and use his framework. Indeed, I would like to expand it to make it even more useful by adding a spiritual dimension to it. Now, the theory of needs that Maslow put forward pertains chiefly to the individual, but it also suggests a way of looking at spirituality and society. For example, if we consider the Bible as an evolutionary document which chronicles the changing viewpoints of people's relationship with God, we can see much of the same concepts in much the same order of appearance with the same messy overlaps. We have the problems of food and shelter addressed in the book of Genesis and even in the book of Exodus with manna from heaven. The need for safety is addressed within the community in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, outside the community in Joshua and Judges. The nature of relationships is addressed in Psalms and Proverbs. The requirements for prestige and accomplishment are sprinkled throughout the stories of David and Solomon. And the minor prophets of Hosea and Jeremiah address who deserves to lead. Self-actualization itself begins to be addressed in the New Testament. Now, although we don't have quite the same level of knowledge with other scriptures, we wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they did not follow the same outline. So spiritual concepts interlocked with Maslow's ideas, but is any of it practical? We pride ourselves in Unity as being proponents of practical Christianity. We try to take action to live our principles to the benefit of ourselves and to the benefit of others. One indicator of the practicality of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the intersection with spirituality is how the people who live the longest and are the healthiest on the planet incorporate these ideas. There are 5 areas on the face of the earth that are designated as blue zones. And in these blue zones, there's a disproportionate number of people who live to be 100 years old or older, and they're productive throughout their lives. What they have in common is an ample supply of plant-based diets with a little meat sprinkled in, some moderate physical activity embedded in their day-to-day lives. They also have a generosity of time that they allocate for relationships, some social interaction with their community and their family, and they cultivate friends. And moreover, they have a sense of purpose and an optimism that they derive from their spiritual basis. Oh, I almost forgot. Most of these people also have a glass of wine often, usually every day. This is not a bad deal. In effect, the people in the blue zones provide a clue to climbing Maslow's pyramid of needs. The evolution of community and relationships is apparently enhanced in resolving these needs. How can we achieve this enhancement in our own personal evolutions of spirit? How do we apply this to our own lives? And how do we define what self-actualization means to us? One way that Abraham Maslow tried to clarify what self-actualization would look like is by devising a list of historical figures that he thought kind of exemplified self-actualization. And his list included Eleanor Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, William James, and Albert Einstein. Now, we can see that these are all great people. They did had amazing lives, but we can also see that they were not problem-free. As a matter of fact, one of the main things that they had in common was that their relationship with their spouses were terrible, very problematic. The sad truth is that no one is perfect, and the idealized person does not exist. At least Maslow didn't come up with any. We are all subject to what Shakespeare observed in the play Hamlet. We know what we are, but know not what we may be. Self-actualization is therefore an ongoing process, not a state of polished perfection like your Facebook page. You folks have the greatest lives on Facebook. I gotta hand it to you. But self-actualization itself, it is the next level on the pyramid, but your pyramid is still being built. Your pyramid's pinnacle is up to you. Your values, desires, and needs are unique to you. Prayer and meditation would be a very, very good help for you to figure out what your unique needs, desires, and values are. However, please consider these 2 characteristics of self-actualization to strive for. They would be a meld of the practical with the lofty. First, a realization that there can be a point where you can say that you have enough. And secondly, that you can expand your unique and creative gifts to benefit others. With a positive faith, you can realize this point sooner than you might otherwise think. Trust your spiritual values. Jesus said, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth or rust do corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal." By trusting your values and trusting in a belief and a faith in abundance, you can focus on utilization rather than accumulation. You can let go of the fear of failure, the fear of missing out, and the fear of viewing others as threats to yourself. It would be so freeing and so beneficial to yourself to persistently live this way. And you might find that it is likely that you will prosper even more. There's a saying in business that first-rate people hire first-rate people. Second-rate people hire third-rate people because they're afraid of being leapfrogged. Guess who fares better? Without these fears and with this sense of purpose, you can live creatively so much easier. If you're an artist, for goodness sakes, use the red paint. Monet would be so much better with a little dash of red everywhere. If you're a musician, put a flute in the band. If you're a mathematician, use the Fibonacci spiral to design a better windmill. And if you're a caretaker, make up a story with your client as the hero. You'll both feel so much better. You will find that this type of self-actualization will produce a feedback loop of purpose, value, and creativity, allowing you to hold a center in tough times as well as good times. Charles Fillmore stated, "We who have studied these creative processes through thought action know how states of consciousness are formed and how persistent a certain mental state is after it is once crystallized." How persistent a certain mental state is after it is once crystallized. You are not likely to slide back down the pyramid once this process takes hold. You just might fit in to Robert Louis Stevenson's definition of success. That person is a success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much. Actually, you might even do better. Amen and thank you.